This is Able Chat.
Where we discuss news, topics and services in your local community regarding disabilities and the NDIS.
Able Chat is about disability. Able Chat is about health. Able Chat is about your community. Go to ablechat.com.au for more information and to ask us your questions.
Well, welcome to another Able Chat. Here, of course, each and every week on a Monday night. And of course, we're played right across the country each and every week, in which we reach out to our listeners, which are all about disabilities. That's right. We talk about health, we talk about services, and we talk about NDIS occasionally, and that's all part of our disability network right across Australia. It's great to have you. My name's Sandy B, and this is Able Chat. AbleChat.com.au is the place to go if you're after more info, and also to listen on our playback. Tonight, well, we've had a conversation, should I say, with a person that is all about allied health therapies and assessment services for people with disabilities. The lovely Juliet Middleton, she's the CEO of LiveBig, a leading provider of allied health services, and she wrote a wonderful story just this last week all about public transportation as it serves Australians across Australia, a way of getting to work, getting to education, healthcare and social networks. And the conversation, well, even though it's a bit rusty, I do warn you, was all about what's happening in our public transport area, but also what LiveBig do as a health provider, and how they represent a crucial step towards recognising and inheriting the right of every individual to navigate urban spaces and the community with ease, dignity and independence. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and let's have a listen. So Juliet, tell us about yourself, and just tell us about yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So I'm Juliet Middleton, and I'm the CEO of a company called LiveBig, and we support people on the NDIS scheme and in schools and other places, predominantly in the community. And we provide supports like occupational therapy, speech pathology, psychology, and one of the things that we do a little bit different is we support people across their life journey, so from very young children through to older adults. And we do that in lots of places in Australia, in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and all the way over to Western Australia.
So you spread right across the country, basically. How do you have offices in each city? Is that how it works, or
yeah, we do, but we're predominantly out in the community. So our clinicians are out in communities, working in people's homes, working in schools and other community venues, and that's also what's a little bit different about us, which also really helps with that accessibility. For some people to get into a clinic or a location can be quite challenging, and so we go out to them. It's also really important for our clinicians to be able to see where people live and what that environment is for them, to be able to help them navigate their way through their daily lives.
Yeah, I can get that. So I always ask this question is, what makes you different from other service providers as far as you go out into the community, but how does that look like? How does that work for you guys? Do you have certain specific programs that you do with your clients, or how does that all work?
We do a number of things, and providing psychology service versus music therapy is a very different types of support. So it really depends on the type of support as to what we're doing differently. But that differentiator is particularly being out in the community at the place that the client or participant or their family or their carer selects. And the other thing that we do differently is we really focus on allied health, on clinical. So we don't do support work or support coordination or provide residential care. We very much focus on that specialist clinical support in the home or the school or wherever somebody chooses.
Improving. You wrote a document about improving transportation in Australia for people with disabilities. And I come across this all the time. It's a common issue about clients having, just in their plan, travel training. And when I read that word travel training, I almost cringe because it can mean so much to some person, but then mean absolutely nothing to another, because quite often NDIS, in my eyes, don't look at the overall needs of a client or what their capacity is at that time. And travel training can be something that could take years and years to finally get to a place. So tell us about the document you wrote with all the about the transportation.
So it was written from a place of similar observations, and that so many of the people we support are not independent with their travel, and that's not always a factor of the sort of support we're providing. It's a nature of the transport system that is being designed and built and runs every day for people who have vision, people who have hearing, people who don't have mobility challenges. And for example, I was talking to a client just this week, and it's not that they have low vision. Their vision is really good, but they are unable to read. So that actually makes travel very, very difficult. And they don't travel without someone to support them. So the reasons why people don't travel are very varied, and it's not just because the obvious things that we sort of generalise and go, someone can't hear, or someone has impaired vision, or someone's mobility. It can be actually, those things can be fine, be something sort of secondary to that. Another person I was talking to it's about the noise. So, if you've been on a bus or a train trying to have a conversation or trying to read a book, it's noisy. And for someone with heightened sensitivity to noises, or who also may be anxious about this and familiar with it, other things going on, that's even worse. So it's not always the obvious things that you see or think. And our transport system is noisy, big, fast. Really, often actually someone said, when the transport, you get on a bus and you feel like, they're saying you feel like you're a sardine.
Yeah.
They don't know. It's hard enough. I see very able-bodied people trying to get off the bus, or I get the bus home sometimes, and there's school children on it, and they're struggling to get off. They're young, fit, able. So how do other people do it, or even older people?
That's right.
It's not designed for that. And I think, again, post-COVID as well, there's been a lot of concerns about how packed public transport is, because the transport providers haven't been able to get drivers. That's a really complex issue.
It's a huge problem, and funny enough, you say this. I've just been given a young fella that that has autism, like quite generalised autism, and the father is he doesn't like people touching him, space, noise, all those things that really alleviate his anxiety through the roof, you know. And his first thing is travel training, you know, and so it's going to take us a long time to gradually get him to a point that he feels social enough to be able to sit next to someone on a bus like a stranger, because that's a really hard thing to do.
Very hard. I even, get on sometimes and go, I really want to. You just have this thought go through your head, go, I hope no one sits next to me.
Yeah, greasy.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. The seats are smaller, so you are crammed in. There's,
It's not a pleasant experience.
No.
But, that travel training concept is a very interesting one, because it's one thing to train somebody, isn't it? But it's another thing to build a level of comfort with something. We can all be trained in something, but it doesn't necessarily make it any easier for us or comfortable.
That's right.
Or alleviate stress and worry about things going wrong. There's a difference between training and actually confidence to apply it. I think that second bit is what our transport system really doesn't do well for people living with disability, or the elderly, or the very young too, actually.
Yes, I've always thought of training for people with disabilities. It's almost like saying we're just going to keep schooling them until they die. It's not necessarily always the right terminology. Routine can work for a lot of people, which is great until the routine changes. It's World War III. But like routine I get, but training is not necessarily something that a lot of the kids that come through the door that I support, and advocate for, I find that they didn't do well at school because they were thrown in an environment that was training. So when they hear that word again on a plan, straight away they're like, I'm not going back to school. I don't want to do that. I just want to do what I want to do.
No, and LiveBig, the sector tries to talk about capability. And to me, that covers not just the learning, the training, but all those other aspects, whether it's, social, whether it's confidence, it's a whole lot, it needs to be holistic.
Yeah.
And, we can provide a lot of training, but then the person goes, I just don't want to do it, I don't like it, or it scares me. And that's that capability piece, and that's again coming back to the transport system, whether it's signage or announcements, and they're patchy at the best of times. And that's the part that the reforms in the public transport standards is trying to address.
That makes sense, and we can only hope that they keep working on it. So you and your team, basically, that you've got a whole lot of supports, as you say, right across Australia, and then what do you think is the most needy out of all the therapies at the moment? Like, is there a particular area that you think, like, is OT more in sort of common now than?
Look, they're all in what we call, to use service delivery speak, high demand. And there is more support needed than any of the providers, including LiveBig, can provide, given there is a shortage of workforce relative to the needs. And, I'm sitting in metropolitan Sydney, and that's, talk about those regions before we even think about regional, rural, remote, where these services just really don't exist. There's a lot of telehealth, and that bridges a gap. But I've always said since the very early stages of my career, it never replaces that in-person support.
No, it doesn't. I know for a fact that I've dealt with rural clients that have no supports anywhere near them. They're in the middle of the bush type of thing. And when they get, they're asking for a report to somehow get them more support in NDIS, which is sort of, to me, almost nearly like a lot of therapies can do amazing things, but unfortunately, we're asking therapists to just keep writing reports, and which really annoys me.
Absolutely. They write a lot of reports, and then there's another challenge in that, because I think you might have seen this, where the client, the family, the carer, whatever it is it has an expectation of what that report's going to provide.
Yes.
And then the professional clinician delivers something that's not quite the same based on their clinical experience and what they've observed, and then there becomes this disconnect, and it's very challenging. And so that report writing and the delivery and the timeliness it's not just about getting the content of that report.
Yeah.
And again, within the NDIS, where those reports have been used to support funding applications or the need for other supports and things, it becomes quite a stressful situation for both sides.
Now, I got a political question. I had a networking event.
Oh, uh-oh.
Oh, no, it's not one that you'll cringe your eyes at. It'll be something you'll relate to, hopefully, because you just triggered something that went in my brain. I had a networking event this week here at Creating Links, in which I invite all network people in the industry to join me. And one of the questions that I came up with is, which was put to the task force for NDIS last week, in the NMA, was that registered providers for therapists. So they're trying to ask the question, should just a general therapist registration, a clinical registration, be enough, or should they have to have NDIS registration as well? And in my head, it's, the question was, should there be one or other and it should still be okay, or yes, you should have both? What do you, this is not throwing you under the bus or anything, just what's your thoughts around that? Because I think it's a really important question.
Yeah, look, LiveBig is both has ARPA registered, so professionally registered clinicians, and we are registered, accredited with the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission. I think it's those two things that you're talking about, I think. And that whole registration accreditation process is very key. As you said, there's a task force looking at this, and there's all sorts of things happening. I think they are two very different things, and some would say, well, I would say this because we're a registered provider, but coming from a quality and safety perspective, the ARPA registration is very much focused on the clinical service delivery.
Right.
The accreditation part of the NDIS is around practice standards, whether you're allied health, support work, support coordination, and the different things are like giving choice and control, which is an underlying philosophy of the NDIS. Yeah. So I think there is absolutely a case for those two things. Yeah. It's not one or the other, it's both.
Right. Well, that's interesting. Yeah,
I think that they're catering to different risks, I guess.
Yeah.
Of course, there is some overlap, particularly with supports that are higher risk, like mealtime management or behaviour support.
Yeah.
And the practice standards do get into more clinical type supports, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's about best practice of supporting any client in any type of service.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because that makes sense. It's like I'm not from a clinical side, so it's interesting to know how those two sit and where they are. I mean, I think the group basically came back on Wednesday. They came back and they all agreed that registration should be made simpler and more affordable for small providers as well. So if you're just you work for yourself as a speech therapist, you should have the ability to be able to register, train, do everything, but as a small provider. And I thought that was a fair thing,
I think that old saying, horses for courses, it really is going to depend, and they need some tiers and they need to be able to accommodate, a provider with one or two people or a sole trader and the larger organisations.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big question. How do you do that in such a diverse system of care?
Yeah. It's really interesting how it all comes. And I didn't mean to throw you on the bus on that one. That was just something that went through my brain because I mean, obviously, everyone around Australia that listens in on this program wouldn't know the difference between an NDIS registration and the clinical.
Of course.
So
that's a good point. Actually, I think there's been the cost of being NDIS registered in time as well as money. And people don't understand what that means. There's a big education piece out there.
Yeah.
That is always sort of, I've been disappointed, but I think lacking.
Yeah.
A provider knows.
Yes.
But what about all the people using the services?
That's right. Yeah. And it's always wise. I always, in my own heart, always believe that if you can find a registered provider, you know that you are getting what you're paying for. They're all monitored, they're all audited, they have a standard of delivery. If you go to a backyard surgeon, you're expecting to get bad stitches. That's the way I look at it. So
and I know it's probably I won't add much more because it is going into sort of quite political contentious territory, that there's a lot of great providers out there who are not registered and are providing great support. There's two, as with any argument or discussions, two sides to every coin.
Yeah.
But I think coming back to fundamentally, there is a difference between being clinically registered and registered as an accredited provider.
Yeah. Juliet, how do people get hold of your services?
Yeah, sure. So probably what I tend to tell people is go to our website.
Yeah. Because
then you can there's our phone number, there's information about us. You can send us a quick note and we'll respond. So our website is livebig.com.au.
Okay.
And then there's multiple ways that you can get in touch with us.
Right.
And talk about whether it's about, whether we can provide supports to you or someone or whether you're more interested in, what we do. Always happy to talk to anyone and everyone.
Fantastic. So you can go to livebig.com.au. You got a 1300 number?
Yes, we have got a 1300 number. 1300, it's a mouthful. It's 1300 390 222, and that's all over our website.
That's easy enough. That's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time you've spent with me today. We've gone down the political path, which I never do, but it all the same, I love the fact that I think all our listeners will be able to tell that you're passionate about what you do, and you're passionate about the company that you're with. LiveBig's a great company, and it's always wise when you're looking for a provider that's somewhere on the other, say you're a support coordinator and I'm looking for someone in Western Australia to support a client and I don't live there. It's always nice to have a big number that they can call through to and just say, look, do you provide service there? And you may say, yes, we do, or no, we don't. But then also I know that companies like LiveBig are not greedy enough to sit there and go, but I do know of a provider there and I can give you the number. So
look, we do so much of that because there's so much need and we can't fulfill all that. There is more than enough to go around. And one of the most satisfying things for us is being able to be part of that system and support people to get the care they need, whether that's with LiveBig or not.
Yeah. So I really appreciate it. And I hope to chat to you again. I think you're absolutely amazing, and we'll love to have you back on the program soon.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.